I'm talking about hyperinflation. That's their only tool left. This is the end game. 2016 is 2008 times who knows how much multiple.
This is an economic and precious metals breaking update from SGT Report. Guys, I have on the line Andy Hoffman. It's Thursday, February 11th, and all hell is breaking loose. The markets are melting down, and in response, gold is skyrocketing higher as we speak. Andy Hoffman, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. This is a historic day, and one that anyone watching what's going on in the world and listening to what I say and what you have been putting out on your station should not be surprised by.
Andy, as you know, we've been documenting the collapse. Of course, the first thing that comes to mind is the derivatives bubble and Deutsche Bank. I think that might be the source of many of the problems we're seeing now play out in real time. Start wherever you'd like.
Well, it's certainly a symptom. The source has been, of course, 15 years of money printing, financial engineering, and fraudulent accounting. Deutsche Bank is very likely to be the epicenter, or, let's face it, I said it's not possibly the next Lehman. It is the next Lehman. It's probably going to be very soon, because everything that's going on there reminds me exactly of what happened at Lehman and Enron and Bear Stearns, et cetera, et cetera. And like you said, they have, if not the largest derivatives book on the world, probably JP Morgan is the only one that could even challenge them. Basically the entire banking system is melting down. The fiat currency system, which already started melting down around the world, is now starting to do so over here. I wrote an article about a year ago called Last to Go, talking about pretty much everything had fallen apart except the markets that are considered the most important for national security, like the Dow Jones Propaganda Average, like paper, gold, and silver. And now they're falling apart too. And the scary thing is what's catalyzed it is been the polar opposite of what has been helping keep this fraud going on for so long, which is central bank actions and words. It started with the People's Bank of China and their attempt at a controlled yuan devaluation back last summer, and went on into the ECB recently extending their NERP and saying that they're going to do more QE. And then, of course, last week's incredibly Keystone Cop-like Bank of Japan and saying, first, we will not go to negative rates, and then saying, okay, we are going to negative rates, and we're going to go even further with it. And the coup de grace, of course, was yesterday when Janet Yellen, in a typical key attack event for the cartel and support event for the PPT, went on Capitol Hill, trapped in a corner by her own rate hike, and of course was forced to become more dovish. And that let all hell loose in the markets. And I just want to say, I've been emphasizing this. People have always, first of all, people always thought the Fed would raise rates, and they were wrong about that. But the other thing that's going to really shock people is that people have thought the mainstream thinking, going back all the way to Greenspan put, following the 2000 tech bubble and the Bernanke put, and now the Yellen put, is that whenever central banks do something, they can save the day. For instance, if the markets keep falling and Janet Yellen comes out next week and says, okay, we cry uncle, we're going to go negative rates in QE4. I'm telling people, just like the Bank of Japan's failure, which has caused the stock market there to collapse, the same thing's going to happen here. There's going to be nothing left that the bankers can do except create hyperinflation. Not mild inflation that makes the 1% richer. I'm talking about hyperinflation. That's their only tool left. This is the end game. 2016 is 2008 times who knows how much multiple.
Yeah, JP Morgan noted this morning it couldn't have been an uglier morning with markets around the world crashing. Gold is soaring. Let's talk about gold, Andy. You mentioned hyperinflation. We've not even begun to see the death of the dollar in real terms. There is no hyperinflation yet. It might be in the system. It's certainly not unfolding in the real economy yet. And still, gold is up today over $40 an ounce. Can people even begin to imagine how quickly gold will rise once hyperinflation hits? Gold priced in dollars will literally skyrocket. No hyperinflation in sight right now, Andy, and yet gold is up 40. Why is gold up so much today?
Well, it's funny you should mention that article by that Zero Hedge said, JP Morgan, saying you couldn't imagine an uglier morning. And I'm almost putting that down as a possible next article title because, I can imagine a lot uglier morning. In fact, we had a lot uglier mornings back in 2008, and 2008 was the good old days compared to what's coming. A $200 point drop in the Dow and 40 points in gold is going to be nothing when you're talking about 1,000-point drops in the Dow and 500-point dollar increases in gold, among other things. Look, You talk about skyrocketing gold price in dollars. Think about what it's doing in other currencies. I mean, in other currencies, you already have gold at or near all-time highs in most currencies. Think about what it's going to be like when the U.S. joins it and the entire world is in a bull market. Because again, we're still at subsidized prices below the cost of production, although it's rapidly moving toward and above the cost of production. And right now, to me, have a perfect storm never before seen in history in any financial market, where you have exploding demand, plunging supply, almost no inventories, and in the case of gold, the most hyperinflationary monetary policy, which will only go parabolic in the coming months and years in history. So again, it has nothing to do with what the price is going to be. It has to do with, do you have it or you don't have it? I mean, we've had these major shortages in silver in 2008, 11, 13. We had a massive shortage in silver last summer when there was no crisis. Think of what it's going to be like when we run out. And we will run out, not just of silver, but of gold. And this time around, you're not going to have central banks that can come save the day. There's not going to be a way to knock the price down and remove sentiment. This is going to be the remonetization of the world. And I'm not talking about a gold standard. I'm talking about the failure of confidence in fiat currency and a capital flight to things that have intrinsic value. And in the monetary world, only gold and silver have intrinsic value. And, by the way, that forgotten precious metal platinum, which is not monetary, but has basically a 90% directional correlation with precious metals. So again, if you can get some, that's great, but it's going to be hard enough getting gold and silver, let alone platinum.
And Andy, I wanted to ask you about silver. Ever since the London silver fix, quote unquote, broke on January 28th, silver has been showing tremendous strength, and it's almost seemingly trading free in the market at this point, Andy, up another roughly 50 cents as we're having a conversation today. So I want to ask you about silver, and then I want to circle back to Deutsche Bank and these criminal banks. They're coming after our cash. Very important article I want to share with you guys and read a quote from Deutsche Bank right now about what they think needs to be done, and it's ugly. But first, silver.
Okay. You go back to that fraudulent fix, January 28th, which is 2 weeks ago, when they fixed the price 6% below the prevailing price, okay? Which in and of itself, in a world where everyone is starting to realize markets are rigged, was so blatant that, of course, the whole world saw it. But that very next day, there's a Polish miner, no one knows it because it's the world's largest silver miner, but it's in Poland and it's private. It's called like KGBM or something, so no one really knows about it. They came out and loudly accused the LBMA of allowing fraud. And that was a big deal because you never have the miners saying anything. But the most important thing, following that up, the next day, my article was titled, you can go Google it, it's just from a week ago. It's titled, "The Most Important Gold Market News in History." That was the name of my article. And you know what it was about? Not about the BK, whatever that Polish company is, but that very next day, with very little fanfare, 6 mining companies resigned from the LBMA. 6 out of, I think, the 40 Category 5 miners that trade there. One of them being Rio Tinto, the second largest miner in the world. And that's what prompted me to write that article, because when I saw that, I realized, oh my God, the miners are finally starting to realize it's fraudulent and they're not going to play in the paper markets anymore. And sure enough, here we are a week or two later, and the markets are breaking. I mean, yeah, we're talking about today. This is about actually, I mentioned yesterday you had Janet Yellen speaking, and I did my audio blog this morning. I said, that's the polar opposite reaction I've seen in 99% of all trading days. You had gold, which yesterday for the first time traded in the polar opposite fashion as it's traded for the past 15 years. It actually resembled what the PPT does to support the stock market yesterday, whereas the stock market looked very much like how the cartel suppresses the gold price for the past 15 years. And look what's going on this morning, where gold and silver, for the first time that I can remember, honestly look like they are trading in a somewhat free manner.
Yeah, and on the 28th, Andy, when that news broke about the London silver fix, the way I reported on it was to call it an historic event. I believed it was, and I think that's playing out to be true. Silver's up $2 from that fake fix in just 2 weeks. Imagine where it could be as the world economies melt down. Now, Andy, we're just going to do a quick update, but there's so much to talk about. I want to ask you about Deutsche Bank. The panic happening at Deutsche Bank and at these international criminal banks must be off the charts, what's going on behind the scenes. There was an analyst from Deutsche Bank who put into words just the other day what needs to be done, right, to save that bank, and it's $55, $75, $85 trillion in derivatives. And I want to give you this quote. On negative rates, he says, Cash should be charged interest. Put the microchip in large denominated notes, tax cash withdrawals, encourage spending, not saving. Mortgage rates can be negative and banks can still earn a spread. The spread is the problem, not the rate. These guys are insane. They're not going to let their multi-trillions Ponzi scheme come apart. They're going to get these governments to try to intervene. They're going to get central banks to try to intervene. That's why they want to ban cash, Andy. What's your take on what's going on? Morgan Stanley's saying some of the same things. Deutsche Bank is sounding the alarm. They want to ban cash. It's insanity. They want to go to negative interest rates and steal more from the people.
Yes, they are not going to be saved. They cannot be saved. They will be Lehman Brothers. Guaranteed. There's not a chance that they will survive this, nor will many of the others that are in the chain reaction from all those derivatives. Although it was kind of interesting, I saw yesterday John Mack, who was the CEO of Morgan Stanley during the TARP days. You know, he bankrupted them and got all the bailouts to keep them alive for a few more years. He said the German government will definitely bail them out. They'll never let this happen. And I'm thinking, is this guy that clueless? Does he not realize what the ramifications were? There's no will of the people to allow the government to. First of all, there's no money to bail them out, and there's certainly no will of the people to allow that. So if they do it, it's only going to be because they turn communist and they just commandeer and own these things. There's going to be no bailouts. This is a different world. This is not 2008. This is 2016, a much, much scarier place. As for negative interest rates, you know, I had a real epiphany yesterday because people have asked me about this cashless society is what I'm talking about. I've had this epiphany because for a while I get asked this and I go, well, what does that mean, cashless society? I mean, we're already kind of cashless. I barely use cash for anything. But then I just realized when I saw, and everyone could Google this article by Zero Hedge, it says something like a funny thing was found in a Morgan Stanley presentation. And in it, the guy says he was at Davos and a high-ranking policymaker that was there from who knows where said, we need to go cashless immediately so we can take negative interest rates well below -1%. And I'm thinking, oh, now I get the whole cashless thing. They want everyone in the system so they could just bail them in and take their money. So there's literally no way to escape. If you're in the system, you're either going to be bailed out or bailed in some way, shape, or form. But now that, of course, since January, the bail-in is now the official way of doing business in Europe in particular, and certainly over here as well. That's what the plan is. And that's why, I mean, how much more can we scream to get out of the system? And the best way, of course, would be precious metals, because this is what these monsters are proposing. They want to commandeer the banks. They want to commandeer your funds. They want to commandeer your freedom. And they're going to do it. I mean, people, this is it. This is the big one. There is no turning back. It will get so much worse than 2008. People will be pleading for times like 2008. And I'm not just talking about financially, I'm talking about all aspects of life. Do not put money in the banking system.
All right, Andy. Well, I don't think you could have made things more clear for people. My last question for you is, what do you see happening with China? Kyle Bass is saying, fasten your seatbelts as he previews the collapse of China's $34 trillion banking sector. He says, we believe the epicenter of the problem is the Chinese banking system and its coming losses. What's your take on what's happening on China? How bad is it going to get?
Well, China is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. The only thing he has wrong is that the epicenter is not China. The epicenter of all of this is the Federal Reserve. We issue the reserve currency, and we have been abusing and leading the largest fiat Ponzi scheme in history, which led to China creating its own Ponzi scheme bubble, which is bursting as we speak. So yeah, look, China is going to go down as hard as anyone else. Of course, in the end game, they will be the ones with all the gold. But I wouldn't count on that as anything as a positive until the whole system crashes first.
Yeah, and I said that would be the last question. Here's the last question. In Japan, the whipping boy of the West since the end of World War II, well, Japan is a basket case.
Well, Japan, I've said all along, they will be the first world nation to experience 21st century hyperinflation. It's guaranteed. Frankly, I'm worried that Japan won't even survive as a country with all that's going on with its demographics, not to mention its nuclear issues, and being right there next to its enemy China during very bad times. And on the hyperinflation, I mean, they are no longer in my world a leading economic power. I think that they're going to go feudal at some point soon, as their population disappears and their economy does as well.
Yeah, Andy, well, thanks again for your time. I just want people to know the reason that we're having this call is gold's up $42 today, silver's up 50 cents, and we haven't even begun to see hyperinflation. That's why people need real money, physical silver, physical gold. They can get it through you, Andy, and I know you have some events coming up soon, one in Minneapolis. Can you tell people how they can actually meet you in person?
Yes, fortuitously timed. Andy Scheckman, our president and co-founder, and myself are going around the nation on a speaking tour. All of our meetings are free. It's all basically Q&A rap sessions. We had our first one in Denver 2 weeks ago. We have two upcoming events. One is in Minneapolis on Friday, February 26th. The second is in Phoenix on Wednesday, March 16th. And if you want to go, it's totally free. Just email me at ahoffman@milesfranklin.com or call us at 800-822-8080.
All right, guys. Well, as you well know, Andy's one of the experts that's been helping us document the collapse as it unfolds. It appears to be unfolding very, very quickly at this point. Andy Hoffman from milesfranklin.com. Thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you. And guys, thank you for supporting us at sgtreport.com. We give you the real news in real time, 24/7. God bless. Thanks for listening.